the cloud. Okay, great. We're recording. So we're going to first go into this outreach and engagement strategy. Let me go to the next slide, Jessica. So you probably got our emails with the draft strategy in there. And really this document is designed to help guide all the engagement and outreach efforts that we're doing now and through future phases of the project. And as we're doing these activities, uh, we'll also be documenting what we do, lessons learned, and ways we can improve in the future. And then that will inform subsequent activities as well as future iterations of the plan, because this is not going to be a one and done plan. This is going to be a plan that's, iterated upon in future cycles and future years. So we see this outreach and engagement strategy as being really central to all of our outreach and engagement efforts. And it's going to be a living document, so we plan on updating it as we move through the project. I just heard someone, did someone have a question? Okay, great. So bigger goals for the strategy is to raise awareness about flood risks and the solutions and just about the plan in general and what it can do for our region. We're also building our participation, getting people involved, and helping to build trust and relationships. So we have this network of, practitioners, of stakeholders, communities, and so many others who are involved in not only building the plan, but making sure it gets implemented. And then, we want to make sure we're building this foundation for community representation. So when the projects that we're going to include in the final plan go through implementation, you have this big groundswell of support to make sure they're successful. And then, we're always looking to build capacity of our communities to, building adaptive capacity so that way we can continue to iterate and build on these resiliency initiatives, not only within this plan, but the other resiliency work of the Planning Council, as well as our other partners. And so, through this, the approach we're taking is really building this bottom up and, a coalition of supporters. And then, we want this to be an iterative process. And so we're, designing the project so that it's evolving and we're learning. This is the first, iteration of the plan. So there's a lot of learning involved. And it's so important that you all are a part of this plan and building it. So that way, we're setting a really good foundation for future ones. And then we want to make sure everything's accessible and that we're utilizing as many different platforms and engagement approaches so that way we can get as many people involved as possible. So broadly, our objectives for outreach and engagement in the short term are, convening, getting people to learn about the project, getting them involved, educating them on the process of how we're building this, as well as their risk as we go through the risk assessment process. And then as we're designing the solutions, we want to keep them informed on those. And then, making sure that they're engaged as we are developing those projects. So they really reflect what communities need and the resources that are available or that, are needed to help implement them. And then, long term, we really want to empower stakeholders and build the capacity to continue engaging in the implementation of the plan. And then, having this network of stakeholders for future iterations. Go to the next slide. So over, I would say, probably most of the last work group meetings, we keep bringing these guiding principles and the visions for the plan to you all to review and provide feedback. And so we think we're at a pretty good place to finalize them. We just want to present them to you once more so we can integrate them in
It was
that
my
strategy.
Yeah.
Travis, do you have a question?
I apologize. No, I do not.
Great, thanks. Um, So I'm not going to read these word for word, but the guiding principles are going to help shape how we're developing this project and the things that, should be sort of shaping how we go about these different activities. So, needs to be actionable, accountable, and adaptive. We want it to be community centered. Another guiding principle is that it helps to restore and redefine paradise, and then it being coordinated and consistent since it's a regional project. I'll pause here. Do you all have any? I think we have three more guiding principles, but any feedback on these? Okay, let's go to the next slide.
Sorry, I was looking for the hand raise and I couldn't find it
Okay.
quickly. Um, Hi, everyone. On this slide, it just makes me think of an upcoming event that I saw posted recently. I believe it is going to be at Bayboro Brewery, if I'm not mistaken, but it's called a it's a debate format, and it really speaks to the like the third section here about considering development and like maintaining our natural environment. So I just wonder if, someone on the team should maybe attend because basically people are going to be debating like how we develop and how we, don't overdevelop and what the impacts of that are. And so it could just be kind of an interesting, timely event to go to. So I can share more details, but that third one I think is really unique and important and would speak to a lot of people.
Great. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, please add some details in the chat. We're also going to have a forum later on in the meeting, so everyone can share cool events that are coming up that we should be, keeping on our radar and attending. Thanks so much, Julianne. Okay, so the last three of those guiding principles is, creating this healthy and prosperous region, um, making sure it's integrated and informed by data, the latest science, it's open science, and then that it's positive and visionary. Now, looking at all of those guiding principles together, any last feedback? I can't really see everyone with the screen sharing, so please feel free to unmute yourself if you have anything you'd like to say. Okay, great. So let's go to the next slide then. So we have these bigger visions, and these we originally started at the kickoff workshop back in May. And so we have a vision for the region. In the last work group meeting, we kind of overhauled these visions. So this is what we ended up with. The vision for the region. So I'll quickly read this. So the Tampa Bay region envisions a future where flood impacts are continually reduced through strategies that balance the natural and built environments. Our communities are actively engaged in decision making and supported with equitable access to resources, education, and resilient infrastructure. Through regional collaboration and proactive adaptation, Tampa Bay will be a model for a livable, risk-aware Florida where people, ecosystems, and economies flourish together. Okay, now let's go to the next slide, which is our vision for the plan. So this one was cut a lot, but as we understand it, this is a little more digestible and to the point. So the Tampa Bay Coastal Master Plan is a community-driven roadmap to reduce flood impacts from sea level rise, tidal flooding, rainfall, and storm surge. The plan will identify flood solutions and resilient adaptations to strengthen both human and natural systems, becoming the region's foundation for unified action. How does everyone feel about that plan vision? Yes, do we have a question?
I just had a question about this one where the vision for the plan is part of it also to identify specific flood issues. Anytime I see something that talks about identifying solutions but not identifying issues, it just raises that question.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yes, and maybe that was implied by, finding the flood solutions. I would think you'd need that, understanding of the flood risk, but we could point that out in here. We'll identify something about risk and flood solutions. Okay, Maya, you have your hand raised?
Battle might be lost. I just have a concern about including storm surge in here because I think that there's less action that we can do to sort of really address storm surge compared to some of these other flooding related threats. But sorry.
Yeah, and Maya, I totally hear you. We've had a lot of back and forth around that because we, want to make sure the expectations are really clear on what this plan will and won't do, and it's not going to like eliminate all of our surge, issues. We kept it in here because we are going to be looking at some level of surge. We want to look at compound flooding. And I think, because this plan will be looking at both structural and non-structural, perhaps some of those, surge interventions might just be more of the non-structural, more policy and where are we raising homes and do we need to consider managed retreat? So I hope really this vision, it's clear it's not going to eliminate all of our flooding issues, but really it's just going to help reducing some of the impacts.
Yeah, as long as we manage expectations in our communication, I think it's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for bringing that up.
There's several comments in the chat, FYI. Not sure if someone is monitoring those.
Okay, let me see. Blake, I see you liked the earlier versions better, but I'll accept defeat. I agree. I think they were a little more descriptive, but I think we can use those earlier visions somewhere, maybe like as like a more expanded version. So this will just be like our big shiny, header vision. And it is more succinct than before. Someone likes the risk aware term. Oh, Julianne, great. And then I see a comment about how does this integrate the deciders? County commissioners, SwiftMud, city councils, and state legislators. That's a great question, Duvon. And is that something that we maybe need to point out more clearly in our guiding principles and how we're building the plan to help sort of inform that the decision making by those deciders, by those stakeholders you outlined? Or do you think that this needs to more directly go into our vision? I see some hands raised. Cheryl, you want to unmute yourself?
Hi, Dr. Holder here. No, I put in the chat, I was just trying to clarify humans that include preparedness, which is a little bit different than awareness, which often means more resources are allocated towards helping people become prepared. Where awareness would just pretty much be education, what you need. And then the humans to go ahead and try and secure those. So I was curious, when you write human systems, how far are we taking the preparing? It says human and natural systems. Just how we prepare natural systems, is that included when you're talking about strengthening human systems?
That's a great point, Cheryl. And I think maybe we can clearly define that in the guiding principles.
Okay,
rather than
that's
having that
fine.
explicitly in the vision, because I think those just provide a little bit more detail.
Perfect. No, I like that answer because it does tell us we're considering it, and then it'll be in the guiding principles. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. We'll make a note to make sure that preparedness is being addressed there. Maybe even it's just recommendations for preparedness. Yeah, great. Thanks, Cheryl. Ingrid, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. I'm kind of circling back to Devon's comment, and not that this should be included about the specific decision makers, but I'd like to know, does the Planning Council have, as part of your roadmap in this planning process, how to engage those deciders? That has been a little bit of a problem in past efforts here in Gulfport. The deciders are doing things here, and it's great. And so there's an opportunity to integrate. But in the past, they didn't always take advantage of some of the community conversations that were being held by residents to, as a place to inform them. So it sort of being clearly the Regional Planning Council is authorized to do things, but only to a point. They have to be implemented. So for myself, I'm letting the all of our city council and city leadership know about what's going on, and hopefully they'll plug in because we're members. But that I'd like to just hear more at some point about how the planning council is going to engage these deciders so that they do use the information effectively.
No, thanks for bringing that up. And I think that's going to be a part of the discussion with this outreach and engagement strategy, and I think getting them involved in these work groups. And we're keen to learn from you on, what's worked in other places, like you mentioned Gulfport. And I think we can adapt some of those similar strategies and shaping this work. So absolutely, I think the outreach and engagement strategy is meant to do some of that to help frame how we can make sure that the right stakeholders are participating when they should be. And I think we can probably do a better job at outlining specifically elected officials and how we can better involve them. And so I'd be, I'm excited to get your feedback on how we can do that.
Happy to share lessons learned.
Great. That's wonderful. Thank you. Um, so I think out of that, then we can make sure that the guiding principles are clearly, spelling out that we, are developing this to for those decision makers. And then the outreach and engagement strategy is really going to lay out like how we can do that. Okay, so I'm going back to the chat to look through. The language could read, identify flood risk and solutions. Great. I appreciate the suggestion for wordsmithing, so we can definitely change that. Our local decision making and electeds on this call and previous ones, we have had them join. But I think, at the end, our call to action is to get more people involved. And I would, love to see more electeds join these calls. And so if you have some ideas for how we can, pique their interest and get them on board, then please let me know. Great. So I think we made it through the comments. So we're going to keep moving on, if that's all right with you all. Please feel free to add anything else to the chat as it comes up. So we kind of touched on this, but more specifically, who are we engaging? And those are those stakeholders who are responsible for implementing, delivering, and supporting, the execution of this final coastal master plan. So, Ingrid, to your point, those decision makers and Devon's point, they need to be in the room, right? So, hopefully we can work with you all to figure out how best to reach those audiences. But then, our secondary audiences, we're not losing sight of these, but we do want to make sure that, those stakeholders who benefit from the plan are, also involved in helping to shape its development and the final solutions. So we have a really big region. There's over 4 million people, over 4,000 square miles, and we have both coastal and inland communities. And so I know I've said this before, but it's really going to take all of us working together to build this plan and making sure that the right people are here. All right, next slide. And so I think part of this and what we first got started with is making sure that we had a really clear identity and some branding for the plan. So that can help us to maximize participation and also ensure that the plan's developed again in the future. So we wanted to have clear, recognizable identity and relatable messaging that helps in building trust, increasing the visibility, and then also helping to foster this shared sense of ownership. So we have branding for the plan, and then we also have some of these messages, and you can see these in the draft strategy. So, emphasizing the purpose and the urgency of this work. We have some messaging related to equity and inclusion. And then transparency and trust and others. This is just kind of a sample of the phrases we've been using. Keep going, Jessica. Great. And then we've been working with you all and helping to make sure that we have those right people involved and the organizations we're continuing to track them and whether or not they're a partner or collaborator or if there's other organizations that we need more targeted outreach for. You all have access to this document. This is our sort of public facing stakeholder list, and it just kind of defines all of our current partners, whether they've given us a letter of support and committed as a partner or collaborator, and then who that point person is for the organization. In the same document, we've also been tracking outreach events that you all have been providing suggestions for, communication avenues and different media outlets, and then, most importantly, related engagement efforts, recognizing that, there's some engagement fatigue, and so we want to really build on what you all have been doing, in terms of other plans and resiliency work, so we can focus on reaching new audiences that maybe haven't been involved in previous resilience work. So we really appreciate all of you guys providing input in this document, so we can, because it's such a big project, this is one way of kind of keeping track of what's going on where and who's involved. So in previous meetings, you all have helped us in identifying some common barriers to engagement and then ways that we can overcome those barriers. So we've heard about barriers related to trust. There's just this inherent, mistrust working with the government. And so that is a big barrier to reaching underserved communities, especially. And so, communication and information sharing, the accessibility of information has been another barrier. Participation, access, cultural and social disconnects, engagement fatigue, like I mentioned, and then just the capacity to engage. So some ways that we're beginning to address these barriers, and again, these are just a few, there's a lot more in our draft strategy. We have a stipend for organizations to join the community work group, and several of you have applied, and we're hoping that more will, because we have some openings for additional stipends. And then we have rotating meeting times and days of the week. We're trying to get to hybrid meetings. Hopefully, we've had some AV issues with our council room, so we'll get to hybrid meetings next year. And then we're trying to meet people at existing meetings through our outreach efforts, providing food at events, making materials multilingual, and then making sure we're using trusted messengers in the community to help in relaying some of this information. And then some of the lessons that we've learned so far through 2025, early engagement is really important in building trust and momentum. Community engagement's oftentimes more effective if we're pairing it with those existing gatherings rather than hosting meetings on their own, just specific to the plan. Clear and simple messaging is really important in conveying what the plan is and how we'll build it. And then we're working on our social media presence and making sure that you all are armed with social media posts so we can help spread the word. And then we know that you all appreciate some flexibility in meeting formats, and so we're going to continue working on that. Next slide.
Alana, there are a couple questions in the chat. Do you want me to read those or wait till later?
Yeah, if you don't mind reading those, that'd be great.
Sure. Vanessa asks, how does one become a confirmed partner versus non-confirmed? What are the requirements?
Great question. We like a letter of support, a letter that is basically committing your organization or agency as a partner or a collaborator. And those are defined more in the outreach and engagement strategy.
And then Deborah asks, is there a preference for a single point of contact? Larger organizations may benefit from multiple contacts getting the information.
Yeah, Deborah, we prefer a single point of contact for our that Excel sheet of all of our stakeholders, but anyone is welcome to sign up for our email lists. So if you have other people in your organization who want to participate, say in our technical work group and help build the technical strategy there, or you have some that are more specific to this work group, they can sign up for those work group and they'll get the notices, they'll get all of our email updates. And so I think we prefer one sort of liaison or representative for our stakeholder list, but in terms of other people signing up and being involved in the plan, feel free to do that, with as many from your organization as they'd like.
Okay, so as you reach out, so say you have one, I'll use Manatee County as an example. If you have one point of contact for Manatee County, when you reach out to them, are they then going to invite others to join even though they're the primary? Because my concern was, sometimes everyone gets so busy with so many things, and they might see if it's just an email in their inbox, they might not have a chance to dig into it and then discuss it with maybe, 3 or 6 other individuals who head up significant groups who could be related or want to be engaged for different reasons. So, for instance, you might have you would want a county commissioner to know, hey, this is going on. And yeah, you do have staff working on this so that they can be aware from their perspective, and decision making and just what's going on that could benefit their constituents. But then you might have one person that's in charge of grants. And, like Manatee has a $250 million grant, I think federal, that is doing some of these same things, that related to flooding. And so that person may need to be aware from their own perspective of heading up grants and aware of, duplication and overlap and contributing to each other's bodies of work. But then, you might have the public works director specifically, more focused on capital improvement projects within the community, what they're doing versus what others are doing, how all of those things may come together and benefit from each other. And then you have maybe a different person who's, more specifically the engineer engaged in looking at identifying stormwater problems, also, flood mitigation that heads up flood mitigation groups. And, it's that old saying, right? The left hand and the right hand don't always know what they're doing, but, all great people, but, running in a million directions. And if they get the information each to their inbox, then I think it might be more likely that as they pass each other in the hallways or see each other at meetings, have that chance to say, oh, hey, what do you think about that? Oh, and then, things might begin to sort of formulate a little more.
Yeah, Deborah, thanks for bringing that up. You make some really great points, and we have heard this challenge before. And so, for now, until we build out, maybe more specific stakeholder lists, my recommendation is to find out who those point people are within your organization or agency and make sure that they are signed up for those emails so they're all receiving the updates. And
Okay.
then they can be responsible for disseminating it to their, respective, departments, et cetera. So
Okay.
um, I think, sending them or whoever our, liaison or our representative is and, going in and maybe signing those people up for our, email lists, that'll help ensure that they get them. There are not too many times where I just email everyone from our stakeholder list personally. We're mostly sending out communications via like our constant contact. And
Okay.
so if you can help us make sure that those people are signed up to the lists you think that are most appropriate, that's like
Okay.
our best way of making sure that they're getting our communications for now.
Excellent.
Um,
And coincidentally, Sherry Swanson, who is the other liaison for Manatee County and works for Manatee County, just called me to check in. So
oh, cool.
I will convey exactly that to her.
Great. Thank you so much for bringing that up.
Oh, my pleasure.
Julianne?
I just think that's a really important point that Deborah is making. And it just makes me think I tried to like scan through the outreach framework draft before the call. And I feel like a lot of these things are built in there of like presentations to different stakeholder groups, like education focused versus listening focused, and the stakeholders. But just what Deborah was saying just made me think that if we had, maybe not just a list, but a little bit of a fleshed out kind of network, like more of like the kind of network maps, like stakeholder maps that are just kind of like the dots, with the lines kind of showing how people connect. And then perhaps like really focused questions during different phases of the project where you want the main contact to, please bring up these two things to the stakeholders that you said, like for example, so if it was Largo, like similar to what Deborah said, we'd have like the public works manager, the streets and stormwater manager, the sustainability administrator. And then during different phases of the project, if it was like, we really want you to connect with your contacts on, these two questions and bring their feedback to the next meeting or something. I think, unfortunately, it has to be a little bit more hand-holding and like a little bit more pretty direct to not get lost. And I feel like if in the vision of this plan is the regional like it, yeah, bring back the phone tree. I see Lara saying like I do think it needs to be that kind of thing because if it's just adding people to an email list, like it is, like Deborah said, it's going to get lost and some people are going to read it all the way through and review and others aren't going to make time and then they're going to regret it later and jump in at the wrong phase of the project with things. So I just would really, I don't know, echo and also just suggest that there might be some like direct kind of way that you're asking us to bring in those other stakeholders, including, the city leadership too. I saw the presentation at commission meetings piece in the plan, and I think that's good. But I also think like if we're all doing that at similar times in the timeline, that would be better than um, leaving it too open-ended, I guess.
Yeah, great points. And I like your idea of creating that, even just like a visual of the network of stakeholders. And I think we can maybe work with you all, this work group, to help in kind of mapping out who the right people are. And maybe we use positions rather than names just because staff turnover. So just identifying the right people within at least the local governments, and at what points they need to be engaged in the project. Ideally, they're engaged in all phases of the project, but maybe more specifically which activities. That'd be great. Yeah, thank you for the suggestion, and I think that's something we can bring back to you all to work on. Great. Wonderful feedback. Anything else in the chat that I need to address? Okay, looks like my team is stepping in and really helping to answer questions. So thank you all. Alrighty. Um, So we want to make sure that there are ample feedback loops in this project, and mechanisms to ensure that community input is heard, it's documented, and then that we're acting upon on those recommendations. So some ways that we really envision doing this is through transparent reporting. Making sure you all understand what we're about to do and can provide feedback before we do it, but then also afterwards, and we're summarizing and bringing back to you and letting you know how, what happened and what we learned from that, and any feedback that we got from the community, and presenting that, developed through summaries, and sending them off to our elected officials, for instance, which we did through our pilot listening sessions as an example. We summarized the feedback we got in those pilot listening sessions and then sent them all out to our local governments. So transparent reporting is really, really important for this plan, and making sure we're building trust. Um, and then strategy updates, as I mentioned, it's, this outreach and engagement strategy, it's a living document, and we're going to be updating it periodically. We also have a technical strategy, that we're building with a technical work group, and that too will be, a living document that we'll be updating throughout the phases of the project. We also have this online forum. I know many of you are already members on there, but if you're not, please make sure you do so. That provides us with a great platform so we can continue these conversations after these meetings. So there's plenty of discussion questions in there, and we can all asynchronously go in and respond to one another, and just continue collaborating beyond these, which will now be, quarterly work group meetings. And then, the work group and having these community liaisons really help to ensure that, we have representatives that are informing all the activities, and that, the guiding principles that we talked about before are being implemented. And we're going to go a little bit more into these. So next slide, Jessica. So working groups, you all are here at the community work group. We have the technical work group. That one's actually meeting tomorrow. So the community work group, is focusing on coordination, participation, in outreach and engagement activities. So raising awareness about the plan, but then also gathering community feedback and input throughout the phases of the project. And then our technical work group is focused on the more technical aspects of the project, although there will be a lot of overlap in these. And we hope at the next meeting we can actually have a joint work group meeting. But they're providing input on the methods of our flood risk assessment and the other more technical aspects of the project. And then we mentioned these county liaisons, and they're really helping to inform, which events we're going to, who's already meeting, and other things that we need to know about each of the counties. Because there's 7 counties, it can be quite challenging to keep track of what's going on where. And so these liaisons, which we're so grateful for, their participation and volunteering to serve as liaisons, they're serving as this interface for us, and the county activities. We don't have one for Citrus County yet, so if anyone on the call is interested in being our liaison for Citrus, we would certainly appreciate it. It's not a really heavy lift. It's really just helping us to keep updated on the county activities, and then also events and other recommendations, groups, and things like that. So. Go to the next slide. And then we have all these other outreach and engagement activities planned. So over the past 2 months, we offered some workshops, and we're going to be offering more workshops later in the project that are really designed to build capacity. So you all can kind of help in spearheading some of this work. So the last workshops were focused on listening sessions and how to host those. And we tailored it to the project, but really it can be applied to any resiliency or other topic. And so later in the project, we'll be having some additional workshops on deliberative discussions with communities. And all of these are just designed to help, build the capacity for better engagement on resiliency topics in the region. So even after this plan is finished, you all are equipped with these skills to go out and continue facilitating better engagement. We're also, hosting listening sessions and deliberative discussions so we can connect directly with community members, and make sure we're capturing their experiences and their current understanding of flood risk and solutions. And then when we have the project concepts, we want them to be able to provide feedback and input so that the final plan really reflects what they want to see in their own community. And then on the outreach side of things and kind of raising awareness and just kind of informing people about the plan, we're going out, we're giving presentations and tabling. The National Wildlife Federation has really been leading those efforts. And you'll see in our yearly recap, we've already gone to quite a few events, but we're always looking for more. So, that's just one way that we can also interface with the public, and just let them know about what we're doing here. So all of those activities are, further explained within the strategy. So those are just some high-level summaries. And then we've already mentioned the website, which we continue to update as we have new publications or, new events are going on. And then likewise in our forum, which you'll be linked to in the bigger website, that allows us to host those discussions, and you guys can continue to provide feedback after the work group meetings. And then we usually will send you all out some email updates about any new publications, new upcoming work group meetings, and any other updates. So those have been our primary communication mechanisms. And I think Katie later on will be going into our outreach toolkit to share the other ways that we're communicating with the public. So that was a really high level sort of summary of that outreach and engagement strategy. And again, it's just a draft at this point, and it's going to continue to be a draft probably until the end of the plan, when we have all of the activities we've done summarized in there. And, so I guess at this point, let me open it up. Does anyone have any other questions or feedback? I know we've gotten some really great ones so far, but if you have any other suggestions for things that we need to include in this strategy, now would be a really great time to share those. Anyone want to unmute, or is there
I'll
anything
just
in the
say
chat?
I'm very impressed. I'm very pleased. This really is comprehensive, and thank you for all the good input that you're getting from people and your ability to incorporate that, or it's already incorporated somewhere that we just haven't seen yet. So I love being part of something that's well organized. It makes my heart sing.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. And again, this wouldn't be possible without you all. You guys provide some really good suggestions and ways that we can make this even more impactful. So really appreciate your participation and helping us build this. Any other comments or feedback, suggestions? Does anyone have a question about it? Well, again, we have a forum, a discussion thread all about the outreach and engagement strategy where I've posted the latest link. So if you have anything you'd want to share after this meeting, please feel free to go in there and add a comment. All of our staff are continually checking that and making sure we're integrating your feedback. So, Julianne, I think that's a great place to go in and add requests, and then as if there's something that we can act on immediately or easily integrate, we'll do that. Otherwise, we'll make sure to bring it back to this group, like the suggestion for sort of a network map of stakeholders. Okay. Anything else before we move on? Great. I see maybe a volunteer for Citrus County liaison. That would be fantastic. Thank you, Devon. All right, next slide then. So I think Lara and Linda are going to provide a summary of the listening session workshops that we recently hosted. And I hope we can also open it up to everyone. So you all, I know many of people who are on the call participated in those. So we'd love to just hear from you all if there was anything that stood out or what you learned. So Linda, Lara, take it away. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna spearhead and then Linda can jump in as needed. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide. So for this kind of phase of the project, we had done pilot listening sessions, which we have already kind of showcased and shared with you all, but this is summarizing the facilitation training workshops. So we held 3 different workshops, one in Pasco, one in Manatee, one in Pinellas, to train community leaders on how to conduct their own listening session. Again, as Alana mentioned, that was focused on kind of the coastal master plan and flooding, but the skills can be applied to any resiliency work or any community listening sessions that you want to host in your community. So through that, we had 101 people express interest and registered. 66 showed up, which is actually above average. So it's about a 65% actually showed to the workshop. And then from there, at the end of every workshop, we asked participants, would you be willing to actually go out into your community and conduct at least one listening session? And of the 66 participants, we had 23 people commit and say, yes, I pledge to do this. That I would also say is somewhat of an underestimation. I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say. Because there were several people that just weren't really ready to commit, had to talk to their people back in the office, kind of the phone tree scenario we talked about. So we're hopeful that that number will be a little bit more. But next slide. So, oh, okay. Yep. Next slide. I'm supposed to hide some of these slides. They're just, you can go to the next slide. We just merged it to the proper formatting. You can advance to the next one. Oh boy. Okay, it's not technical difficulties. Just go back one slide and we'll roll with it. Okay, so at the end of every workshop, we did an evaluation to assess what people learned, what skills they developed as a result of the workshop, what we always do in extension. So what we saw is we had a 65% increase in facilitation knowledge and skills. And while for us, that's a little bit below what we would normally see, we did have a lot of kind of people that do this regularly in their community, or that is part of their job to do community engagement and outreach. So they kind of already came in with a high base level knowledge and skills. We're still impressed with the 65%. And then 89% reported feeling adequately prepared to conduct listening sessions, which was really the whole goal and mission of the workshop. So that is very exciting to see. And then 85% that they said they can increase their community's participation in the Coastal Master Plan, which again is a larger goal and effort of the broad community outreach and engagement aspect of the Coastal Master Plan. So next slide. So from here, so we did those 3 listening sessions. You saw the bulk of the attendance was in Pinellas, which may shift how we do things in the future, but we now need to follow up with all of these people that said they are going to do community listening sessions. And so Jasmine, who's on our team, she wasn't able to be on the call today. We'll be following up with everybody that pledged, as well as everyone that participated in the workshops, because again, some of you, and I know a lot of you on this call were at these workshops, just weren't ready to commit, but maybe you are now, or you just want to talk to us more about it. So we're kind of going to be doing some hand-holding between now and through winter and spring. And the goal is that people will be conducting listening sessions early 2026 and kind of wrapping things up with listening sessions by next summer. So that's kind of where we're going with the listening sessions. And then next slide. And then kind of moving forward, and I don't know, Alana, if you want me to cover the slide kind of for the phase 3. So moving forward, Alana also mentioned there's the listening sessions, which is again just kind of gathering input from people on their experiences. And then the next phase of the community engagement is something called deliberative discussions, which, as the title indicates, it's a very deliberate, intentional conversation. So it'll be basically taking all the input that we've heard through these listening sessions and developing kind of a very structured, facilitated discussion that's very specific to the plan on what the community really wants. Now that we've honed down, we'll have project concepts. So, and we're going to be training people how to then conduct deliberative discussions. So similar format to the listening sessions, but a different focus. So we'll host 3 workshops again to train community leaders, hopefully many of you again. And then later on in the project, we will help the community leaders that we've trained to then go out and conduct deliberative discussions with their community, which will again further guide the development of the Coastal Master Plan. So lots of effort. All I have to say, lots of effort on community engagement, and that is a big focus for us. We don't want to just create this plan in a vacuum, and we hope that you're seeing this through these efforts, but that's just so you know where we're kind of going forward in the future in 2027 and 2028. And yeah, we can pause for questions or comments from people.
Well, I love this idea, and I think that getting our leaders trained as facilitators is brilliant. And the effort it takes to get some of those people in the room, bought into the role will be important, So it's great that you have that in mind already so that we can work towards that. We certainly have people that I know will step into that. But again, I'm thinking of people who are going to be running for office in 2026 that really should be part of this process if they win or even if they don't win, because they'll be community leaders. So that's where my mind is going. And I'll just put that out so other people might be thinking of that as well. If you have local municipal elections are in March, at least in our town. So we've got 2 new seats coming up. And Jennifer Webb, by the way, is running for office. So she has been in state legislature and would be perfect for something like this, I think. We'll see if she thinks.
Blake, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. I was wondering if you could you go back one slide? I just had a question I saw in the desired outcomes. There, it's one of the outcomes was building consensus on specific project designs related to the master plan. Could you just like expand on that a little bit more, or kind of what the vision is in terms of, consensus on different designs?
Yeah, and Linda, feel free to chime in, but the way we typically host our deliberative discussions, there will be specifics. We're gonna, by the time we're doing these deliberative discussions with the community, we're gonna be pretty far along in the development of the Coastal Master Plan. So we'll have some project concepts, and basically we're going to be discussing those projects very strategically with community members. And then as a result of listening to their thoughts and feedback from what we kind of present to them, it's not so much like consensus, like this is what we are going to do. We're going to get a general feel for where the community thinks there is like stronger focus or emphasis or priority. And then that will be factored into the Coastal Master Plan.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that yeah, this is a way of getting people to buy into the master plan and to also identify actions that perhaps they can take, kind of that low-hanging fruit. Where can they get involved in the master plan itself, whether that be through advocacy or maybe actually, physically getting involved somehow, some way. So a lot of different layers to deliberative dialogue. And so but the overarching goal is for everyone to see what the draft plan looks like and to deliberate, the actions and the trade-offs of some of those steps, if that makes sense. Michelle, go ahead.
Hey, sorry if I missed this, but I wanted to ask the question. With those in attendance at these first three workshops, and also kind of amongst those that made the pledge to do a listening session in their community, I was just curious if did you, I assume yes, but did you collect their what organization they're from, and did we see a diversity in community leaders that fell into unique categories, but also NGOs and local government staff? And even within the NGO category, did we see, everyone was from a science and environment type organization, or did we get, faith-based organizations or just like public health or other types of missions, within the representation?
Yes. Pretty much yes to all of those things. Did we have as much representation from every group that we hoped? No. We had a lot of, county staff, and Lara, help me out here. We had a lot of county staff, but it wasn't predominantly county staff. So, we had one or two from this organization, one or two from or those types of organizations. So, I mean, we're not finished, so we hope that we can reach out to more people. I think the biggest challenge we're finding is getting representation from certain counties. That's where we're really challenged. Not so much the groups themselves, but like we didn't get a lot of participation from Sarasota County or Hillsborough County, even, believe it or not. So that's really the bigger challenge is how do we get to all of the counties? So it was a great question, Michelle. Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
And yeah, and we can all have Jasmine kind of organize in that way. We can present on that at the next workshop, kind of a breakdown of who's representing these community leaders. I think we have the information, we just haven't compiled it. I would say, to Linda's point, it was definitely more like city, excuse me, municipal staff heavy than we anticipated. And not to say that that's a bad thing, because obviously they have connections as well. And as Linda said, right, we only held 3 workshops. We know not everybody that wanted to participate could. So certainly if there's other community leaders that you all know of, you're more than welcome to send them to me or Linda or Jasmine, and we'll kind of hold their hand one-on-one to help them conduct a listening session. So it's not like those 3 and we're done.
Thanks for that question, Michelle. Before we move on to the next bit on the agenda, I wanted to open it up and just hear from anyone who participated in one of these workshops. What was it like? Anything you'd like to share about your experience to the bigger, work group and others who maybe weren't able to attend? Anyone have anything they'd like to share? Maybe something you learned?
I guess I could speak up. This is Deborah.
Great.
I was impressed with, well, I guess not impressed, but surprised by what a diverse mix of people we had at the Pinellas meeting. There were so many different people from different organizations, and bringing, some with more technical backgrounds, but some not. And so I find myself, I forget which hat I have on as I'm contributing or participating. Wait, am I with the technical folks here, or am I with the community group here? Because there is both. And so, reaching out to so many people to let them know that, hey, this is a big problem. We have a way to talk about it. And as a region, we have a plan. I thought that was fabulous. And, for those county governments or others that are already working on these things, I think I was hearing you say, yeah, it's kind of hard to reach them. Um, I'm wondering if in some ways it's as simple as saying, you guys are buried trying to solve these very problems. We're looking at addressing them, from the entire region. And so there's so much overlap, right? I mean, they may already sort of be doing the same thing on a smaller region, and letting them know where they fit in and how. But maybe that's, really already addressed. I just haven't been part of the technical group as much. So, but I was impressed by the diversity and the combination of people and getting to meet people that are, wow, yeah, of course they're going to be concerned. And you hear people talk about this all over the place. And most of what people know or understand is not it's like third level removed. They really don't know what they're talking about. So I think it's nice that there's a way to have the discussions with people that are so far removed from the actual technical problem solving. So kudos for that.
Thanks for that, Deborah. Anyone else want to add anything about their experience at the workshop?
Just in general, I thought it was excellent. The overall training, how engaging it was, we were there, I think, what, 8 hours, and the whole time, I think we were all engaged and enjoying the experience of learning all these really great strategies and techniques, from all of you. So yeah, it was awesome.
So much, Amanda. Glad you enjoyed it and that it was engaging.
I am in my car still. This is Sandra. I wanted to add that I was able to connect with Deborah, who spoke a moment ago, and she and I are planning a listening session the new year in Manatee County. So that's how I was able to connect with her and meet her. And so we're off like gangbusters. So.
Yes.
It's awesome. Love to hear the connections being made and all the collaboration that's going on. Great, thank you. Anyone else? Alrighty, well, thank you to those of you who shared, and we're just happy that we can host, something through this project and the grant funding we have that can help the community, not just, help build this plan, but then also help, build your guys' skills to go out and continue doing this amazing work. Michelle, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask too. I know I wasn't able to make it to the one in Manatee County, but I also was curious since I came to the May in-service training, which I realized I'm sure was similar to what you guys did in the workshops, but also different. I was just curious, did you guys structure it in a similar way, but just shift things a little bit for the audience? But as far as the hands-on training on listening sessions and deliberative discussion was it a similar format?
Yeah, it was similar. I mean, we made a lot of changes based on our observations in the first training. I mean, any good trainer is going to do that, right? We don't usually repeat things exactly. So, and we even adapted and shifted from one workshop to the next, within the 3 workshops. So, yeah, I mean, we had a little bit more detail on how we wanted, the listening session data sent to us and those kinds of things. So we had a lot of those things worked out, still a lot more things we need to work out, but yeah, it was very similar. I mean, I think mostly the content of what we taught was very similar, but we took what we heard, the questions we heard from the IST, but also our experiences in the pilot listening sessions. We took those and incorporated those into the training sessions. So those were all very valuable.
So Michelle's referring
Great,
to,
thanks.
we had a pilot workshop for extension agents and TBRPC staff way back in May on the listening sessions. And so luckily we got a grant to do that, as well as host those pilot listening sessions in the fall. And we learned so much from those, and just kind of having our staff go through and be sort of our guinea pigs. And so from those lessons learned, we were able to better tailor these most recent workshops to meet our needs. And so that's what she was referring to. And hopefully for the next set of workshops, we can maybe find another grant to have some more pilots too. So if anyone's interested in joining a pilot the next time, please feel free to let us know and we'll make sure you get invited. Alrighty. Thank you all for sharing your experiences and we look forward to continuing to update this group on the listening sessions as we go forward into the spring. I'm going to go to the next slide, Jessica, and I think I'm going to turn it over to Katie to go into the outreach toolkit.
Yeah, hey everyone. So for the outreach toolkit, just to kind of talk a little bit about that, simultaneously to things like the pilot listening sessions and the listening session trainings, National Wildlife Federation is on the ground doing the community outreach, which is kind of that one-sided educational going and doing presentations and tabling at events. And so as we increase our network, as we talked about earlier, and you guys are putting those contacts on that stakeholder list, what could be really helpful to me is just that if you don't just put the event, but if you have a like inside contact to that event, or who you would like me to contact to do a presentation to, because I am kind of having a little roadblock where I'm trying to find those ins to be able to see who I need to be, doing these presentations to, or what appropriate events it would be for us to be out there and tabling out about the Tampa Bay Coastal Master Plan. So with that being said, the outreach toolkit is now a little bit more organized, and I have it up on our website, which I'm going to do a tour of here in just a second. But those are all the materials that we are using when we're out there in the community and trying to educate about the plan itself. And that is including things like the presentation. So there is like a template intro presentation that can be utilized. And there's also some different flyers, different things that just really help with being out there in the community and educating about the plan itself. So again, the website is a little bit more organized under that resources tab, and they're also included in that resources tab is the publications tab, which basically is summarizing things like our kickoff meeting. It's summarizing the pilot sessions that we just had this past year, and then the draft strategy after you guys have your kind of like final time to comment on it will also be going up there under the publications tab as well. So currently, can you, sorry, for the slide. Sorry, I thought I was in control of it. Yeah. So currently the things that we have in the outreach toolkit includes, in-depth flyers and then some basic flyers about the coastal master plan and where we're at currently in the phase that we're at. Also, there is the flood risk survey with the QR code and a cheat sheet in that outreach toolkit so people can understand how to utilize that survey so that we are assessing where flooding is occurring in this really wide region that we're working on. There's a fact sheet both now on our website and in that outreach toolkit. There's also that elevator pitch worksheet that we worked on together in the community work group that basically goes over the vision of the plan and of the strategy of like why we're doing this, who, what, when, where, kind of thing, and a quick little like spiel about it if you're wanting to talk about it out in the community yourself. We also have that slideshow presentation and those email communication templates. So I know there was a lot in the chat about, getting new stakeholders onto that list. In that outreach toolkit, there is an email template of like a draft of what to say to those individuals that we're trying to get into the fold. It also has a worksheet that shows the difference between a collaborator and a partner, depending on what, you're trying to, or who we're trying to get as a stakeholder on that list. And then we have some different educational infographics about the different types of flood types that we're trying to address, and then some social media tiles of where we're at currently. So things that we are working on to get into that outreach toolkit is going to be things like case studies on nature-based solutions, infographics, educational worksheets like that can be utilized during outreach and as we go into the risk assessment phase in this coming up year as we're doing our outreach. We're working on a story map to get up onto the website. And then as we get a little bit further into the plan itself, we're working on getting like basically a video recording of a webinar of the Tampa Bay Coastal Master Plan one-on-one. So that can be up on the website as a resource that people can be directed to. We're also working on getting that calendar. I know somebody else also asked in the chat about where, they can find out more about the events coming up, or events that maybe they attended. We're working on getting in a calendar up on the website, as well as a form to fill out so that you can either email me directly or until we get that form up, you can fill that form out and let us know about upcoming events or an event that you attended and the audience and how many people you engaged with. And then we're working on also, as we increase our publications that are going up on there, adding a tab for our partner resources and publications that would overlap or complement what we're working on with the Tampa Bay Coastal Master Plan in itself. So that's kind of like the nutshell of what's in it currently. And I'm going to show you it in just a second on the website, but also what we're working on. And so feel free to put, and I'll put my email in the chat in just a second. I just saw that question, but feel free to put in the chat any materials that you feel like would be helpful to you for doing your own outreach. If you feel like you could go table or do a small presentation yourself, or even just have like a talk within your county team to another department, these are some materials that you can share that are helpful. And I know somebody did ask about social media tiles. We do currently have some in that outreach toolkit folder. We're working on more. And so when we do post those on the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council's social media, they're typically collaborating or tagging the other leads like National Wildlife Federation. But you guys, I'll put in their instructions. That just kind of gave me an idea, instructions of how you could utilize those tools if you would like to on your own platform. If for some reason you didn't get to catch it during that time, where you could reshare it on your social media platforms. But yeah, so feel free to put in there any ideas you might have at the time as far as more materials that would be helpful. I don't know if there was any questions about what's in the toolkit, but I can showcase here in just a second where that is on the website. I'm trying to see if there was anything, or if anybody has any. Okay, so next slide. And just again, to reiterate, everything that we do, we have goals for it and outcomes that we would like from, this outreach toolkit is really to help, this working group, but also, who we're interacting with to help clarify the purpose and the vision of the Tampa Bay Coastal Master Plan. We're also trying to equip you guys with as much materials that are cohesive and that communicate effectively with our branding. And we're trying to increase accessibility as well. So we're trying to give you as many formats as ways to communicate and really bring people into the fold with this plan. Because again, as Alana has said, and we've all said, this is a really large region that we're working with. So we're just trying to spread this message as far as wide and making sure that we're incorporating as much as we can into the plan. And then obviously to increase our capacity, our public awareness and engagement as we work on the outreach toolkit and the way we communicate. So I'm going to share my screen real quick and walk you guys through the website. Okay, is everybody seeing the website?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So the website is at coastaltampabay.org. Just to kind of let you guys know, the facts tab is now under the about section. So we did post a forum and we're going over the facts currently that have to do with the phase of the plan that we're in currently. So you'll find under that frequently asked questions section, questions about the plan that just drops down. And then you'll see questions about the community role. And then as we move into, more phases of the plan, when we get into the deliberate discussions and project submissions, we'll obviously keep adding to this FAQ section on the website itself. But that's if you want to direct anybody to the most commonly asked questions, that can be found here. And then also in the outreach toolkit, there is just a Word document that has those same questions that we'll continue to add to as we add to the website. Can't reiterate enough that forum is such a great place. As Alana said, we are checking it regularly, people that are a lead on the team. So, we'll probably be posting a question about that network, how we can expand within, our county designations, that those networks, and identify who those roles are, those peoples are. We'll probably put that question up on the forum. And so we count on you guys to go there and reflect, and answer and help us as we are, drafting these ways that we're communicating with our audience. And then if you go under the resources, we now just organized it so that if you click on resources, you'll see that this is what we've been working on to spread the word. The first section is a link to those publications, which you can see is the pilot listening session summary report and the launch workshop summary report. And then, like I said, we'll be adding the draft summary of the outreach and engagement plan here soon. And then if you go to the outreach materials tab at the top, there is a quick link to the outreach toolkit, which I'll click on in just a second. But then there's also a quick view to just some of the most commonly used materials that we have, which includes things like those flyers and those education fact sheets. And so if you click on the quick link to the outreach toolkit, it will take you to a folder on a Google Drive, and basically everything is organized by the type of kind of like outreach we might be doing. So like for virtual presentation, that is the kind of the 101 presentation that I'm giving currently. And it can be adapted, depending on what the needs are. I will say if a presentation is something that is needed for your group or to expand into other networks, basically saying like a virtual presentation is just an easier way that we can quickly get a bunch of people at a given time, because again, it's a large area that we're trying to cover in a lot of events. So if something as easy as me giving a virtual presentation to a group that you've identified is something that is needed, let me know and I can easily do that. And then, like I said, it's organized by tabling materials. So when you go into that folder, it has everything that you might need to table event, including things to like put up on like a trifold board if needed. It has the survey, the flood risk survey. Social media posts are what we have currently. The only thing that's not in there is just essentially the verbiage that would go along with that, and instructions in case you might need instructions on how to post those social media tiles. Release forms, things like the media release forms, if you're taking any pictures at events that you might be attending or presenting at. The messaging is those emails that I was talking about earlier in the chat section, as far as first communications to get involved, what's the difference between a collaborator and a partner, and then some just general messaging about, again, what the goal of the plan is, that can be utilized in the emails. And then again, you can kind of see what else is all in there. But if you have any questions about it, or if you're like, you're not sure if there's something that should be in there and where to find it, feel free to email me directly and I can point you in the right direction. Or also kind of throw it up on the forum as like, hey, this is the need we have, like, so that I can get that in the outreach toolkit itself. So I'm going to stop sharing that. All right, and then, yeah, you'll put back up the. So is there any kind of like glaringly obvious gaps or anything that the group maybe right now in regards to the outreach toolkit? I know we've gotten a lot of emails of like, just, where's this at? And just so that it's in one concise place, so people have access to it at a more readily fit pace.
I saw in the toolkit a template outreach email asking a group to come and potentially be a partner.
Yep.
I was also thinking it might be a good idea to also have a template for those of us who are going to be conducting listening sessions, as a template for us, like actually invite a group to come and participate in a listening session as well, since I would have a bit of a different language than the other one.
Yeah, and I think Lara and Linda they can probably chime in on this, but I think that was their plan. And currently, there's not a lot in that outreach toolkit about the basically community engagement, which is the listening sessions, and that's kind of UF IFAS Extension's role. And so I think that they are creating a materials folder that has more stuff in there. So I don't know if Linda or Lara want to chime in on that.
Yeah, no, you're right, Katie. Oh, go ahead, Lara.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's a work in progress, and we as a team on the Coastal Master Plan are meeting pretty much weekly on the community engagement and outreach. So we're constantly kind of getting feedback and moving and pivoting and creating as we go. And then, as we mentioned, Jasmine will be reaching out to everyone. So if there's a specific need that really comes to light as we're like, hey, what do you need for your listening session? We'll just keep building that resource.
And like Lara said, we keep pivoting. If we need to organize it where that folder goes into the outreach toolkit folder, or we need to create another drop down like quick link, we can easily do that as those materials are produced for people that are working on those listening sessions coming up here. Michelle, I see your hand raised.
I had the quick question of when I was looking through the folders, for like tabling materials, I noticed there's a sign up sheet, where folks could put their name and email. I assume that's to sign them up for y'all's like newsletter. And if I did that at my table and got responses, or could I sign them up for the newsletter myself, or would I'd be sending that sheet scanned to someone to put them in to receive updates?
You brought a good point. I'll put instructions in that folder about how to use the sign up sheet, but you are correct. If you could just send me a copy of it, and then I would sign them up for it. Basically, we created that because there is a QR code at like a tabling that they could just, automatically do that. But we do recognize we're trying to increase accessibility. We realize that not everybody wants to pop out their phone and, sign up right then and there, that kind of thing. So if they are signing that sheet, it is to get on the mailing list. And then from there, hopefully we can get them into one of the community work groups, whether that's the technical or the community one that we're in currently. So that's a great question.
And Michelle, you can also sign them up too on the website coastaltampabay.org. If you scroll to the very bottom, there's a join our email list for project updates, or you can at the top hit get involved, and then you'll see the email sign up there. So either one I think works for us, whatever is more convenient to you.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, so we can go to the next slide. All right, so we just wanted to take a moment before we kind of open it up to what's been going on with everybody else and the partnerships we've created through this community working group, of just taking a look real quickly of where we've been and then where we're planning on going into 2026. So next slide. So we did have a big year. It seems like it went pretty quickly. But we started off the year in early spring with hosting the first kickoff meeting at Stetson University College of Law. We had 99 participants attend that meeting, and that's really where the work groups came out of that meeting, and really the first kind of draft iterations of what we wanted this plan to be, the vision and the strategy for it. From there, this entire year, we've been working on the draft engagement and outreach strategy. That draft, as Alana has said, is an iterative document. It is going to constantly being kind of updated as we pivot and we learn lessons and we involve more stakeholders and community leaders within the planning process. We engaged over 74 participants in pilot listening sessions in this past summer to fall season. We hosted 3 facilitation training workshops and had 66 attendees that Lara and Linda gave us a great overview of the outcomes of those. We identified county liaisons, and now we have Citrus County covered, which a round of applause for that, because that was going to be one of the action items before the next meeting. And we have 20 partners and 37 collaborators on board so far on that stakeholder list. And we're always looking to get more people involved with the plan itself. And then we attended 4 outreach events and presented to 5 groups about the Tampa Bay Coastal Master Plan, and interacted during those events and presentations with over 385 participants or people. So next slide. And I'm sure there was a lot of other accomplishments and behind the scenes things that people were doing that weren't quite, those were just the highlights, but just wanted to highlight all the great work that this group has done over the past year. So going into 2026, we are going to be shifting into quarterly work group meetings, and we'll talk about more about that after I get done. We're going to try our best to utilize that outreach toolkit to continue raising awareness. So again, feel free to get in that folder and kind of snoop around and see if there's anything that you need and or how you can utilize it to increase awareness and spread the word. We're continuing to target outreach events and presentations regionally. So again, helping us with that is really beneficial, and getting us that kind of like contact point is helpful as well. We're supporting our communities as we host listening sessions regionally. We're helping to ensure risk assessments, tools, and communications are prioritizing under-resourced communities. So again, I know we asked earlier about, were there any groups that, we were trying to fill the gaps or that we weren't hitting? So just helping us continue to identify and making sure that our assessment tools and communications are prioritizing, and we are doing that on the back end, and we have a system for that. But you guys are our boots on the ground as well that are helping us, making sure that we're adhering to those practices. And then we're trying to increase the participation in the flood surveys as much as possible. So we'll probably have some social media and more when we're out tabling and at events, trying to increase people to just fill out that survey for us so we can help identify regionally where we're seeing flooding, especially in those under-resourced communities. So any other ideas from the group? We want to kind of hear from you to see if there's anything that you guys are thinking that the work group should be working on, or that we haven't identified. Yes, Julian.
So for the flood surveys, I know at the listening session training, we all took the survey, so we could kind of see how it was and everything. Um, just thinking through like how we help increase participation in those surveys. Is that something that is in the toolkit of like messaging to specifically promote the survey? And then also just recognizing that we know that there are vulnerable areas across our communities. A lot of us probably know what neighborhoods those are that are hit by rainfall, storm surge, tidal flooding, etc. So knowing that not everybody is on social media, and even if they are, like there's so many demands for their time, and also considering our own capacity, like I'm just thinking on a sustainability perspective, I hate yard signs, but from a get a message out into neighborhoods to people that might have an opinion on something, I love them, and they've worked very well for us in Largo to be able to get feedback from community members we don't usually hear from. So just something that I think could be a consideration is like a yard, if you really want to get flood survey data. I'm trying to remember the survey itself, and if you're just trying to identify areas that have flooding issues, I just feel like some of us, especially at like city, county, nonprofit, these different community organizations, like we know where those areas are. So if we had yard signs from you all that we could have, different residents that we know, community members that live in the area, like, hey, can you put this in your yard for 3 weeks, to be able to, promote the survey? I just think that could help to get more direct input, if that makes sense for what was in the survey from what I remember when we practiced it.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And I think we were also thinking like along those same lines, identifying like recreation boards where we can put the, QR code and the messaging up on there. I do think we do need to tailor and maybe that messaging a little bit better than it is right now, because the messaging as it stands is more for like one of us being there to kind of be like, here's the survey, and we're here collecting the survey versus kind of that mass call. So I think that's a really great point. And I've made note of that as something, to think about how we work on that messaging, but also can we get those type of marketing tools to use for outreach? I think Alana was gonna, yeah.
To build on the discussion about the survey, we've heard from you all that the current survey is a little bit challenging to go through and complete. So we're actually going to be changing platforms to a different survey, yeah, like hosting website. So hopefully this next one is easier, but we'll share it out with you all and hopefully get your feedback. And yeah, we'll figure out which one is best. I think when you have a mapping question in any kind of survey, it's a challenge, especially knowing most people do it from their phone, which is different from their, like a desktop. So anyway, thanks for hanging in there with us, and we're going to make sure that this survey is as easy as possible. But love your ideas, Julianne. Thanks for bringing those up. Blake, you have a hand raised?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, semi-selfishly. So at the estuary program, we're going to be working on building a map of underserved and overburdened communities to help with this project. And one thing that I think would be useful, that's kind of integrated here in the 2026 goals in terms of prioritizing under-resourced community, but I think it would also be valuable to get feedback from community members themselves about how they feel that underserved or under-resourced communities should be defined in the first place, so that we're not sort of entirely from an outside perspective saying, oh, okay, this community is under-resourced by our definition or things like that. Because, eventually, once you get down to prioritizations, you don't really, in an ideal world, you don't want to end up with a community saying, well, why aren't we considered under-resourced? Why aren't we considered all of these sorts of things? So I think that might be a nice goal to have in 2026, is explicitly gathering feedback from communities about what they feel actually, reduces their socioeconomic ability to respond to these things or to get help or to have capacity to do things that we may not be considering. And ultimately, it may be like, oh, if they tell us things that we don't have a way to quantify or we don't have data for, we ultimately can't really consider it. But at least having some kind of richness to be able to count, counter those potential perspectives that might come along the way and have a clear justification for the things that we choose.
No, it's an excellent point, Blake. And thanks for bringing that up. It's definitely a goal of ours. We should talk about it more at the next meeting, because we're trying to develop this risk assessment framework. And I think there's going to be a lot of decision points there on how we're, selecting those communities to be prioritized for projects. And so, we're going to be asking questions about, okay, which socioeconomic data are we using, and like, what are those like thresholds for those decision points of like, is this considered basically what contributes to vulnerability related to flood risk, right? So thank you for bringing that up. And I think it's definitely an essential part of the conversation that we're going to have a little bit of tomorrow in the technical work group, but then we're definitely bringing it to the next meeting with both work groups to talk more about that risk assessment framework and sort of how we're identifying those areas. So thanks, Blake. Amanda?
Yeah, I had a question. I mean, maybe you already have this, but to have a timeline, maybe like a public facing timeline, right? Because it's over a 4-year period, this plan. Public facing and also internally facing for us. for internally one to understand how the technical team and community outreach team, how our different timelines are. I know at one point you're bringing in like a big consulting firm to do some of this plan work. When does all the research, stop and the implementation begin? And, how do all the people that are actually going after this grant money to implement the plan, where does that all fit in? Things like that internally. And then obviously, I'm thinking you probably have for the public already, but just so the public understands too, like a basic timeline of when things are stopping and starting.
That's a great idea, Amanda. Right now we do have like a public facing one on the website. I think if you go under about, you'll see there's a timeline button. But I really love that idea of that internal one. We've gone through several iterations of timelines, and we were focusing more on the public facing one, but I think now that we're kind of getting into the nitty gritty of the plan, you all are really familiar with, the phases and like how generally like the structure of how we intend on building it. I think we can start diving into some of the details, and having that back, behind the scenes timeline makes a lot of sense. So thanks for bringing that up. And I think we're taking notes, and something we can bring back to the work group. So thanks, Amanda. Any other questions or suggestions? Y'all have provided some really wonderful feedback so far, so thank you. Do you want to go to the next slide, Jessica?
I have a quick question. Apologies because I wasn't able to catch the very beginning of the call, but are you able to recirculate a recording after this call of the meeting?
Yeah, I think we can upload. I don't think in the past you've uploaded the work group meetings to our YouTube, but for this one, yeah, we can do that. Thanks for
Thanks so
asking,
much.
Shelby. Yeah. Um, Jessica, do you want to stop sharing your screen so we can see everyone? We wanted to take a portion of the agenda, devote it towards like an open forum for you all to kind of share updates and just to help build collaboration amongst all of us. So want to open up the floor, I guess. Feel free to unmute yourself, and just share any update you have for the group. It does not have to be specific to the plan. It can be more about your organization too.
I'll maybe jump in since I just had spoke up. Hello, everyone. My name's Shelby Thomas. I'm with Ocean Rescue Alliance International. We're a marine conservation nonprofit, and I've been in the area for about 8 years now. Did my PhD with the University of Florida, based over on the off-campus site in Apollo Beach. So worked with the Center for Conservation, which is now has a Florida aquarium, coral restoration facilities, as well as the Sea Turtle Rehab Center, FWC, and SYCC. So had a little conglomerate there. I'm no longer working with the university, but still in the region. And with my nonprofit, we're focused on building artificial reefs and scaling marine restoration. So I would love to contribute to this group and also see if anyone in this group would love to work on projects in the Tampa Bay region around oyster, mangrove, and seagrass restoration, as well as coastal defense and artificial reef structures.
Thanks for sharing, Shelby. Dominique?
Greetings, everyone. My name is Dominique Cobb here in Hillsborough County, city of Tampa. Just wanted to say hello and also offer my assistance in the Hillsborough County area. I was not able to make some of the classes in Sarasota, but I would love to assist here and see if we can get some community outreach and input in this area. So, and also working on a lot of great things in Hillsborough County with youth and focus on water. I was also a water steward. So if you all have any projects or would like to collaborate with me, I can definitely share my email address. So it's a pleasure being a part of this. Thank you.
Thanks, Dominique. Go ahead, Ingrid.
Yeah, I just wanted to say hi. It's I'm here in Gulfport. I had two other people, one city councilor and another community activist like myself, attending the facilitator training, which was great. And my career has been in leadership development and team building. So, and my where I'm going now in retirement is really just doing stuff in the community. I have connections in Tampa that might be useful as you're doing your outreach efforts. So it would be worth a phone call and we can see how we can connect. And if anyone is wanting to partner with a session and you don't have another partner and it would help, I'm happy to be considered and, you know, let's make this happen.
Awesome. Thanks, Ingrid. Maria?
Thank you, Alana. My name's Maria Scambati. I'll be on these calls on behalf of the Florida Clinicians for Climate Action, so really helping to kind of keep the human health impacts at the forefront as our conversations continue. I'm a physician by training and I'm an instructor, and I'm also doing some work with the Regional Resiliency Coalition. I'm really happy to see that there's been funding for an extensive community-based organization, community engagement. So many communities were impacted by unanticipated flooding that brings a lot of immediate human health risks and delayed human health risks from it. So I'm happy to see that. And my only other thought about outreach is I don't know if we're using any of our media channels like the news stations, Sustainable Living Show, local podcasts, and things like that to help share this information as we go out.
Thanks, Maria. So I have been interviewed on the Sustainable Living Show about the plan, and we have done a news segment. I think it was with Bay News 9. So definitely trying to get out there, the media outlets. So thanks for bringing that up. And if anyone has other media connections or looking to do a story on the plan, feel free to send them my way. Thanks, Maria. Anyone else want to chime in on about their organization? It could be an update or maybe an inquiry for collaboration. It does not have to be related to the plan.
I don't necessarily have an update, but I always want to just put myself out there. Like I said, me and Keandra Darling, we are looking at making a listening session for South St. Pete in the first quarter of the year so that we can ensure that some groups that weren't readily heard and maybe didn't have the opportunities to come to some of the sessions through the city or whatever it may be for different reasons. That we are working around their needs and their schedules so that we can create that listening session for them. And having Keandra will be great because she is very local and very local to South St. Pete, and we really want to create some of that that comfortability. Additionally, we are going to have someone come and speak at CONA, which is the Council of Neighborhood Associations, in this upcoming year. And I'm working with the president of CONA now to decide which month we want to go ahead and have that speaking take place so that we can disseminate that information amongst the neighborhood associations as well and get more of that traction. Admittedly, I've been a little bad with checking the site and the forum, and so I'm going to get better at that moving to the next year. But please let me know if there's anything that anybody needs help with. I'm in St. Pete, but I'm happy to help in any way because this matters a lot to me. And even more so now that we had a quiet season, because I've already heard some people discuss how like last year was a fluke, and I really don't want to drill that home. So I apologize I wasn't able to be more part of the meeting today. But yes, if you need anything, please find me, let me know, email me, whatever it is. I want to be of service to this group and to the overall mission. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Sarah. And I just added, I made a forum thread on our bigger forum page, just related to opportunities for collaboration and just, other announcements. So please feel free to use that after the meeting if you are looking for a partner for a different project or anything else. That's a great place to add it. And then also just creating an account with Forum and adding your email and in the description is a helpful way for people to get in touch with you. So we can continue collaborating and talking, after the meeting there. Bola, I saw you had your hand raised. Did you want to share anything?
Not really. Well, I guess it is important. Hi, Lana. How are you?
Great. Thanks for coming.
I didn't do a lot of talking in this meeting, but I was listening. And what I did notice is really what I want to say is hi to Ingrid, hi to Fatima, hi to Sandra, Maria. What I noticed is that there's a lot of overlap in this call with a lot of us that partner and collaborate already. And so we have each other on LinkedIn, we have each other on Facebook. Let's tag each other on our listening sessions so that people start to watch, oh, what are these listening sessions? What's really going on? What are they doing? So there's a lot of powerful people on this meeting right here. So I'm excited about what's to come and getting more community involvement. So thank you so much. And someone had said earlier that, oh, it was Ingrid, how impressed she was that this is so organized. Me too. When I met Alana and went to the first session, I was so impressed with all of them and the training. So let's do it, everybody.
Thanks, Bola. Really glad you could join us. Lara?
Just to comment real quick, and apologies, I had to step away for the restroom, so I don't know if this was mentioned, but we do plan for everyone that's going to host a listening session. Jasmine is going to be putting together like a list or a calendar. We haven't quite figured out what that's going to look like so that we can help cross promote. But also, if you want to like sit in and just see how somebody else conducts their listening session, that'll be available as well. So that's part of what we'll be putting together early next year.
And it would be great if we could align with like ongoing efforts by county or municipality. Like, let's say they're about to redo their vulnerability assessment and they need to go out and do some engagement anyway. They're planning on hosting a listening session, then great, like invite us. And then, it's like 2 for 1. So let us know about those opportunities so we can just maximize, our efforts. Any other updates? Even if you just want to unmute yourself and share your name and organization, that works too. Otherwise, we'll keep moving on. We have a Zoom poll for the next meeting date.
Alana, I might just jump in really quick. Thank you. I just wanted to also throw it out there. With our organization, we're looking to bring a big project over here to the Tampa Bay region. Most of our work's been on the East Coast with artificial reefs and coral restoration. One of our goals, especially in not necessarily response, but in preparation for coastal resiliency is being able to do submerged breakwaters, living shorelines. So we would love to work with all the entities and collaborators here to build impactful projects that will help prepare and create readiness for Tampa Bay and its resilience in the future for the environment. And so we're aiming to pitch a larger project. One of our other aspects of our work is we submerge underwater sculptures and create snorkel parks to connect people to nature and also support the local economy, but we require restoration to come conjoined with that. So we're aiming to do a Champa Bay initiative where we're engaging with the Bucks, the Rays, and the Lightning to commemorate the 2020-2021 wins, but use that as a focal point to really advocate for the marine environment and coastal resiliency. So in conjunction with that artistic reef project, we'd like to do breakwaters and submerged structures across St. Pete, up through Clearwater and Sarasota South, and then other conjoined restoration projects and in the Tampa Bay region. So if there's anyone that would be interested in hearing more or maybe collaborating or conjoining on the project, we want to work with local partners that are already boots on the ground. I know Tampa Bay Estuary Program has a very robust plan that spoke with, I see Maya's on the call as well, in ed a few times. So would love to just continue building here and seeing what we can create together to help our environment and our community. I dropped my email in the chat if anyone's interested. I can send a little bit more of an overview of this project initiative.
Thanks, Shelby. Love the idea of combining restoration with art. Really innovative and impactful. So thank you all for sharing, and we hope we can provide a bit of time for a similar forum and our future work groups moving forward. It's so important that we're all connecting. Beyond just talking about the plan, just hearing from you all and what's going on and how we can help each other. So the next meeting, we'd like to schedule a date that works for everyone. We're going to be talking more about the risk listening sessions, as well as our risk assessment framework. Tentatively, we're thinking this will be a joint work group meeting. I guess we'll figure that out, but for now it's going to be a joint one. We'll let you know if that changes. I have a quick Zoom poll that I want to launch because we have 3 different dates identified, either Tuesday, February 24th from 2 to 4, Tuesday, March 3rd, 2 to 4, or Wednesday, March 4th, 2 to 4. So please respond. Let me know if you cannot see this in the chat, or yeah, let me know in the chat if you can't see it, and then we can get your response in the chat. Okay, has everyone had a chance to respond? Can I get maybe a thumbs up if you've responded? It seems like we've had at least 20. We have 39 people, so I know that there's still some who have not responded. We also have a doodle that we plan to send out with our follow-up email. So I'm going to end the poll. It's okay if you haven't had a chance to respond. We know you probably have to check your calendars. So please look out for that email, the follow-up email, and feel free to respond to the doodle poll there too. It looks like Tuesday, February 24th and Tuesday, March 3rd have good responses. So we're going to coordinate the times with when the AV in our council room is going to be replaced. So this can be a hybrid meeting. So we'll send you guys out the final date shortly. Thank you for responding to that. Jessica, are you going to share your slides? I think we just have one more about the next meeting. I also want to remind everyone that your time here is really valuable, and even if you're not receiving one of the stipends for participating in the community work group meetings, we do want to make sure we're capturing your time, and that can be a match for us for our grant. So we do have a form on our website that you can fill out that just helps us to identify sort of how much time you spent in a meeting or other event related to the plan, and we ask your rate there so we can basically add that as matching funds for the grant. So you can find that on the work group page if you scroll down, and I'm going to add that in the chat. So if you scroll all the way down, you'll see that there's this survey to help us calculate your time. So if you don't mind going in there and filling that out, that really helps us when we do our reporting to the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, who gave us this grant. So thank you for that. Next slide, Jessica. Oh, I did have a question on that slide. So for this meeting, we invited everyone who is on our constant contact list for the community work group. Do you all like for us to send out those calendar invites, or would you prefer to make your own calendar invite? Yes. Okay. Seeing yes, please send out the calendar. Okay. Great. It gets a little tricky if people sign up for the community work group after we send out the calendar invites. But we'll for each meeting we'll make a public calendar invite and share it with everyone who's on the constant contact list for at least up to that point. Yes, calendar invite. Okay, seems you all like the calendar invite. That's great. So before the next meeting, if you don't mind going and making an account with Forum, that's really helping us to, continue talking and collaborating. So highly recommend you go in there and you can tag one another. You can set up your notifications. It's really a cool website that we designed specifically for the project. So go in there, make an account, and then help, contribute towards some of those discussions. And then we're always looking for tabling opportunities. If you know people, you want to connect us to them, specifically Katie is your contact person for all of the outreach. So please feel free to share those with us. You can either add events in that one spreadsheet we sent out with all of our current stakeholders, or you can just shoot Katie an email. I know it was added earlier in the chat, but we also, the next slide, you'll have all of our contacts, our email addresses. Looks like we got a liaison for citrus potentially. So if anyone else is interested in being a liaison, please reach out to Katie about that as well. And then, of course, we can hope you will continue inviting people to participate in these work group meetings, especially the elected officials. I know we would benefit from their participation, but it can be a challenge getting them to come. So if you have some ideas for how to do that or specific contacts, people you think would come, please, connect with us and share those. And then make sure you follow us on social media, and then feel free to utilize the social media posts that we've developed on the website, or you can repost. We have a LinkedIn and a Facebook, and so as we share posts, feel free to reshare those. Next slide, Jessica. So here's our contacts, and then I think they've also been added in the chat, and all of our staff is most of our staff is working on this project. So any of us that you reach out to, I'm sure we can point you to the right person. So yeah, don't hesitate to reach out. And we thank you so much for joining this meeting today and all your helpful feedback. Hope you have a great holiday, and I look forward to seeing you at the next one. Blake?
Yeah, I was just going to ask Alana, in terms of feedback and suggestions for the draft outreach and engagement and technical plans. I know those are like going to be living documents, but is there a particular immediate timeline or like touch point that would be useful for concentrating feedback on some particular timeline? And also, are you wanting feedback in terms of just like adding comments or suggestions versus directly typing in either commenting mode or editing mode, or just kind of what you guys, if you guys had a preference for that feedback?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer so like for the public, feel free you can download a copy if you have a lot of feedback you want to provide throughout the document. You can download it and add, comments, and then we'll integrate those. It'd be great if we get your comments before the next work group meeting so they can be folded in, and we have an updated version. And then, for you specifically, Blake, and the TBEP team, I think you guys have access to our working one, so you can feel free to go in there and just edit it directly in the community workgroup folder. And then we also have the forum too. So I posted it in the forum. So if you have, any bigger suggestions. Maybe it's not like a grammatical fix, but just something like, hey, I think you need a section on this, or more direct strategies on how to engage this, stakeholder. Feel free to add that in the forum. So I think, does that answer your question, Blake?
Yep,
Great.
thanks.
Awesome. Thank you for that question. Any other final questions before we end the call? All right. I don't see any. Thank you again. Great meeting. Just really appreciate all of your guys' support.